Learning to hit hybrids and fairway woods correctly can prove elusive for many amateur golfers. That's because these clubs are a little bit more difficult to use due to their extra length of the shaft and the reduction in loft on the club face. But today I'll share with you some ideas that can help you to hit these clubs better, including the correct ball position that you should be using for these clubs, and also the wrist angles that I see people getting wrong all the time when it comes to playing these longer clubs. I'm going to be using the HackMotion wrist sensor throughout this video to help you see how you can improve your wrist angles to improve your performance with these clubs. But before I show you the wrists, I'd really like to spend a bit of time on the setup. So we're going to take a look on this front camera. Oftentimes people get the ball position wrong with these clubs, or confused at least. They're not sure how to do it. We'll start with the hybrid. The hybrid, as the name suggests, is somewhat of a crossway between an iron and a fairway wood. But effectively, both the hybrid and the fairway wood are still being hit from the ground. So it's necessary that we have a slightly downward angle of attack, meaning when this club hits the ball, we want it still to be traveling slightly down so that we can hit the ball first and take a small divot or ground contact after the ball. Now, in order for that to be likely to happen, it's important we place the golf ball just behind our lead shoulder. The lead shoulder, which is represented by this shaft or stick on the ground, this yellow stick, the lead shoulder is the center of the swing. The lead arm and the shaft form the radius of the swing, and at its widest point, that swing arc would bottom out directly under the lead shoulder. So we have the 0 point, if you like, directly under the lead shoulder, and then I'm going to place the ball 1 to 2 balls behind the lead shoulder. I would say 1 ball behind the lead shoulder for the fairway wood. So there's a very small angle of attack or downward angle of attack built in. And I think we can go to 2 balls back for the hybrid. There's a little bit more loft on the hybrids. They're closer to that iron swing. So 1 ball back on the arc, 1 ball behind the center for the fairway wood, 2 balls behind the center for the hybrid. That's what that would look like. Now, a lot of people, as I say, get that piece wrong. It's important the ball position is correct relative to the lead shoulder. The next thing that you need to be able to make sure you're doing, and it's even harder with these longer clubs generally, is to make sure you keep moving your lower body and the weight forward enough in the downswing to be able to create the necessary spine angle and shoulder tilt necessary at impact to shallow the angle of attack. You'll have been told that you're supposed to sweep these clubs a little bit more than a regular iron shot. You're not supposed to hit down quite as much. And whilst that might be true, the way that you should achieve that is via more hip sway to create greater spine tilt, not, as I see in so many cases, golfers hanging back on their back foot and casting the club in an attempt to try and lift these less lofted clubs up into the ground. That results in hitting the ground behind the ball, bottoming out too early and thinning and topping the ball. Topping fairway woods and hybrids is one of the most common problems I see, and it stems from golfers either having poor ball position and concept of how to hit these clubs, but most of the time it comes from the idea that they're not seeing the ball get up in the air, so they start to hang back on their trail foot, cast the club and flip, and ultimately hit the top of the ball. If that sounds like you, this video is going to tackle that problem. We've already addressed the ball position concept. 1 to 2 balls behind the lead shoulder is the guideline for fairway woods and hybrids. Now let's get on to improving these wrist angles so that we can hit these clubs better than ever before. So to avoid the unwanted casting that so many of you do in the downswing with these longer clubs, you can use the casting drill inside the HackMotion app to teach you how to retain the correct wrist angles in the downswing. That's going to stem from understanding how these wrists need to feel as you start to move the club back towards the ball. And in so many cases, as I say, this is where golfers tend to get it wrong with these longer clubs that have less loft on them. And the reason for that oftentimes is because they're just not seeing the ball get airborne enough with their regular swing. So they're consistently hanging back and trying to add loft, but with dire consequences as far as contact is concerned. The way that we do this to hit these clubs as well as possible, we're going to take our setup. I'll hit one with the hybrid first, and then I'll do one with the fairway wood as well. But conceptually, these are quite similar. The problem is, as these clubs get longer and the loft reduces, it becomes more difficult for you to hit them. And so there'll be a point somewhere in your setup and your swing where you may be okay with a hybrid, maybe a 4 or 5 hybrid, but you get to a 3 hybrid or even a 3 wood and you really struggle. So if that's you, You just need to understand how to do these particular pieces better to enable you to hit the longest clubs as well as the slightly shorter ones. The first thing I would tell you to do is the ball position. We've already covered that. Make sure when you're hitting these clubs that you keep your weight forward in the downswing. One of the biggest mistakes that golfers make is thinking that they're supposed to lift this shot up into the air. So they move their weight back, they start to scoop, as we've already mentioned. That is detrimental to this club. Keep the weight forward. Remember, we want a slightly downward angle of attack. That's similar to an iron. We don't want to be shifting around. Keep the weight very slightly on the front side and favor the lead side throughout the swing, even with these less lofted clubs. Now, as I take my setup for the drill, on the HackMotion, you'll notice it's telling me to go to the top. I get my backswing in place, and I just start practicing coming down, keeping the wrist angles, not casting. HackMotion is measuring whether I'm increasing this angle in the downswing or reducing it, decreasing it. Decreasing it is the goal. The feeling as you start down of taking whatever angle you have in your wrists and reducing the space between the shaft and the lead arm. I'm doing these slowly. It's going to give me some mixed feedback in terms of how well I'm doing these. As I describe this to you, we go to the top, I move down, hold the angles, get the feedback. If I was to do this incorrectly, and this would be very typical of most golfers trying to hit this club, especially if you hit a full shot, you'd go to the top. I'll actually go ahead and demonstrate one. I'll go to the top, and then I'll allow my wrist angles to start coming out in the downswing. You'll see on the HackMotion there, I got the casting feedback. I also topped the ball, which would be consistent with how a lot of golfers hit this club when they struggle. That's my concept of trying to push the club away to scoop or lift this ball up into the air. We don't want to do that. That's bad. Casting, or the opposite of casting, would be retaining these wrist angles, which HackMotion, as you can see on the app, teaches you to do. So work through this slowly and start with the hybrid before you rush to the fairway wood. But based on your current skill level or where you are currently with this part of your swing, you may need to go very slowly to begin with before you build up to hitting shots. But the great thing about this app and this particular drill is I can go ahead and hit shots with it. And I can get the feedback as to whether or not I managed to maintain my wrist angles. I managed to stay within the range there. Contact was a bit better. I just overdrew that one slightly. We'll go ahead and hit one more. This time I'll try not to speak too much as I go. Go to the top. That one felt like it came off a little bit straighter. We got the feedback of a slightly better shot, no curve, and I got the feedback of maintaining the wrist angles into the downswing. Just notice as I hit this from the front view, there's no weight shift, not moving off the ball, whether it's the hybrid or the fairway wood. I'll hit one more hybrid, and then I'll go in and grab the fairway wood and show you that that's pretty much the same concept. No weight shift, controlling the casting as you can see on the app, getting good contact, hitting these clubs. Okay, now let me grab the fairway wood and I'll show you how that one works as well. Quick question for you. Did you know that 80% of your golf ball's direction comes from the club face angle at impact? And it's your wrists that control that angle. If you want to hit straighter shots and add more distance to your game, then check out the link in the description below. Okay, fairway wood in hand, ball position, one ball behind the lead shoulder. That's just encouraging a very slight downward angle of attack. Everything else really is the same. The fact that the club's longer and it has less loft just requires the fact that I need to keep moving my weight forward, as I've already mentioned, to create the spine tilt to allow me to hit less down at this golf ball. The drill is going to be similar. Go to the top. I'm getting the feedback there of being in the right place. The HackMotion sensor is vibrating to tell me now that I need to keep this within a certain range. Coming down, again, not casting. I can feel the correct movement. Let me hit one. No weight shift, no casting. A lot of you will find that this is tricky to do at full speed, as I mentioned. It's partly why you struggle with these clubs. So it's important to go at your own pace and to do it at a rate that you feel you can work through. Very often I'll speak to students about not even trying to hit a 3-wood. For some people, based on your club head speed, a 3-wood is a very poor choice of club to have in your bag. You'd be much better off with a lofted fairway wood. A 5-wood, a 7-wood can be very useful, and even a 9-wood can be clubs that add a dimension to your shots which allows you to hit the ball much higher than the iron, comparative iron in your bag, but still allows you to maintain great distance and good land angle to be able to stop the ball on the green. So give that some consideration when it comes to your particular game, your particular swing speed and your particular level. Is hitting a 3-wood something that you can do with your current speed? If it is, then I'd encourage you to use the tips shared in this video. Monitor the ball position. It's important you keep an eye on that. It can get out of place very, very quickly. Golfers put the ball too far forward, they end up not being able to reach it. So just be mindful that the ball is in the right place as you set up. And then when it comes to controlling the contact, making sure you're not casting this club in the downswing is extremely important, and something I see so often from golfers trying to get these lower lofted clubs up into the air. I hope you found the video useful, and there's some tips in there that you can transfer into your own game with the hybrids and or the fairway woods. If you enjoyed the video, do go ahead and let me know, and also make sure you get down into the description of this video. There's going to be a link that you can click where you can take you to further HackMotion wrist training videos.